All right, it's 8 o'clock. So I will start. I believe in starting on time. There was once a CGD, I believe, who started every meeting at which she spoke with a loud shouted, "Hello, fellow Toasties." Some of you might remember that if you've been
I
in this.
do. Serena, right? Serena?
I have no idea of what her name is.
Yes,
Serena,
Serena. Yep.
Serena Case.
She was so exuberant.
So let me start this by saying that this is my last training as PQD, and it's only the start of training for the district, for the division directors and the area directors. Division directors and area directors are required to have at least 4 hours of training. This will represent the first hour. Starting on July 1st, the PQD responsible for training is Carol. Carol, do you have anything you want to tell us today?
I'm excited. It's going to be a great year. Lots of distinguished clubs, lots of good leadership traits being learned.
Great. And she'll be the one that will continue with the next 3 hours of training. Not today, but she'll tell you soon. The way I like to run meetings, I hate cross talk going through chat. So that has been disabled except for situations where I may ask you to use chat for something. But generally, what I want to do is be able to present sections of today's training and then go to Q&A at the end of individual sections, which will be done by raising your hand. If there is a need to use chat, then I will tell you that, and it'll be the chat will be, shall we say, regulated by the two people to whom you can send it, the host and the co-host. In addition, you do not need to make copious notes of anything today. I'll be sending you every single slide you see here. I'll be sending you a lot of extra things too immediately after the meeting. So please don't try to take those copious notes that sometimes happen. We'll start today with the initial area director and division director training. A lot of the concepts that are here are needed by both area directors and division directors. That's why I've combined them. So let's start with a look at the agenda today. When I say initial training, this means only enough to get you started on July 1st and to get you started with what you're doing. So I want to first of all show you team members. Then we'll be talking about team building and succession planning. Then area director visits, and then some things I'll be delivering to you. There are a lot of other things involved in area director and division director training. Some of those things I will be giving you cues to where you should go after yourself, and other things will be covered in subsequent training sessions. Let's first start with team members. The district quartet is at the service of every area director and every division director. District quartet is listed here. I think we have most of these with us today. But if you have a question about who's the director, the program quality director responsible for education, that's Carol. She's already spoken here a little bit. The club growth director is Diane Stewart. She's responsible for starting new clubs and expanding clubs. And then the public relations manager, Mark Decker, who I believe saw here. We are really going to push this year of adding public relations to bring in new members to our clubs. So if you have some public relations efforts in your role that should be coordinated at the district level, Mark Decker is the man to go to. You'll find all of the email addresses of these people, or at least your email connections to anyone I'm showing here, right on the District 11 website. Division directors. All division director roles have been filled. Catherine Denzine for Division A, Robert Goodloe, Division C, Nate Anderson, Division E, Subramani Swaminathan, Division F, and Jane Croft, Division H. We're not quite so fortunate for area directors, but we're pretty close. Divisions A, C, and E, we only have one open C33, C32, which is being worked on. I told you, or I told many of you, that I'm using the best capabilities I have to be able to have every division director and area director in place by July 1st. It's going to be a push, but I've been working hard on this for the last month or so since the district council meeting, and we are pretty much well along, with the exception of my own division, which is Division F. We only have half of our directors working on that. And I'll note one other thing here. H86 is being covered in the interim initially by Jane Croft, who will be getting us a replacement there too. So that run probably should be yellow as shown as open. So that's where we're at. These are your fellow area directors or fellow division directors as is appropriate. And this will all be coming to you in the slideshow. Before I go into team building and succession, any question about any of the division directors, area directors, or any of the district leadership? If you do have a question, just raise your hand. Seeing none, I will then go on to talk about team building and succession. Frankly, we've had a difficulty in the last several years with this topic of team building and succession. Ideally, at the end of every year, we should be able to go to an area director and ask that area director, who is your recommended replacement for this year? We should be able to do the same thing with every division director. Who is your recommended replacement for this year? We did do some of that by asking at area visit time, is anyone in your club interested in becoming a district leader? But that's not sufficient. We have to build in our own areas or in our own divisions, we have to build our own succession. And let's look at what I mean. The division team, by the book, and when I say by the book here, it's publication 222, the District Leadership Handbook. For the division directors, you should have appointed for yourself an assistant division director for program quality and an assistant division director for club growth. Now, there's no one looking over your shoulder that's going to say that those are the exact areas you have to divide your efforts into. For example, when I was last division director, I had one division director that was the master for communications, and another was the master for contests. The point is, these people that you appoint, you must all have two friends that can help you out from time to time. It's not an official position. It may only be tactical, but you are introducing these people to your role. And they may be the pool from which you can take division directors next year. So you have to look at them with an eye toward whether or not they can succeed you. And then also the area directors. Area directors are another source of succession planning for the division team. Similarly, the area team, every area director should have at least two assistants. Assistant for program quality, assistant for club growth. When I was an area director, I had one assistant. I mean, I've been an area director something like 14 or 15 times. And each time I've had at least one person that was doing something else for me. And the recommendation is now two. But everyone must have two friends in your club, if nothing else. that will help you do something. You're probably going to want some help when you create your first area director contest later in the year. Maybe you just want to have someone around to help you with contests. This is all up to you, but I urge you to do your best to get people to help you. One of the most common questions I get when I'm trying to solicit people for either division directors or area directors is, how much time is this going to take me? And my answer is unequivocally, it depends on you. The more people you get to assist you, the less chance you have of becoming overwhelmed. The more people you get to assist you, the smaller the effort by each individual. So your first step, I think in the beginning of July, should be to acquire and build your team, both in the area and in the division. Anyone have questions about that for succession planning? No hands raised. The first thing that's going to happen, hopefully starting in July, is area director visits made to clubs. Now, before I go into this, I maybe want to ask a couple of questions of you all. And if you have a response, raise your hand. Can someone tell me what the purpose is of a division director? Anybody? Hand raised anywhere? What? You're division directors. You must know what your purpose is if you're a division director. Sam? Go ahead, unmute yourself.
All right. One thing I would say is to coordinate or be a resource for your area directors.
That's correct. But what, okay, so let's take a segue from that. Resource for your area directors. What is the purpose of area directors? Somebody else. Raise your hand, somebody.
Jane has her hand raised in the window.
I can't see it on my screen. Okay, call Jane.
Hello. Okay. I believe the area director is the ears and eyes on the ground to be a liaison, hearing what is happening with the club and sharing the theme, challenges, and successes that the club as a whole in the area, and address it with district as well. And district information has something to pass it down to clubs. So it's that sort of like liaison role between the two. So making sure your clubs are successful with all the tools they should be having, or if they're missing a tool, we provide that resource. Likewise, a district needs ears and eyes in the ground to see what's happening in the club level. So you're essentially a middleman between the two. Did I pop quiz?
It wasn't really meant to be a pop quiz. I vision the area director as the liaison between the district and clubs, correct. But the main purpose, in my opinion, of an area director is to help a club be successful. And the means by which that is done is to develop a relationship with the club and to understand the problems and provide solutions for the club. Now, when we first make area visits, it's often considered, as a matter of fact, I was doing an area visit last year for an area director, and I was introduced at the club by an officer that said I was there to judge the club. I was not there. We are not there to judge the club. We're there to solve problems and help the club be successful, to solve problems. So you've got to find a way to have that club step around the table, around the figure of table, and to be together on their side, to view their club from their situation. We're going to spend a bit of time on area director visits here because we want to introduce some new things this year to help you assess and find the club's problems. So let's take a look at area director visits. the first thing you need to do, and I would do these as soon as we're done with the meeting here, because these pre-visit steps should really start as July 1st. As a matter of fact, I would suggest to you, there's no reason that your club visits could not all be done during the month of July. Now, I know they don't have to be done until quite further toward the middle of or toward the end of the year, but my question is why? Why would you wait to do the visit of your club until November when you can do it in July? That gives you several months to solve problems or help the club solve problems. Now, there's a lot of steps I'm not going to go through in the actual visit itself. As a matter of fact, I want you to review this particular document, Serving Clubs Through Visits for Area Directors. I will send you a copy of that at the end of this meeting. It's publication 219. That gives a step-by-step in detail what the club visit should look like, how to go through the club assessment from the standpoint of moments of truth, all those kinds of things. So that's part of your homework. But the pre-visit steps are really three, the way I see them. You have to know from a review of what you're going to be doing with the club. And that this publication 219 says who you contact, how you position what you're going to do at the club. A new step this year is what we're going to call a pre-visit assessment. The pre-visit assessment is something that doesn't normally come out of the form that's generally used for the visit, the Visit Club Form 1471. We'll talk about each of these three steps individually. Let's start with publication 219. It looks like this. If you haven't seen it before, I'll be sending a copy out, whether you have or not. Everyone gets a copy. This is also helpful to the district division directors, so you can guide area directors when they have problems or questions. This document is the minimum document that you should be reading. If you go to the education system for division and area directors on the TI website, you'll see lots and lots of other publications that you should use at different stages, but we're focusing today only on the first visit of the club. So I'll be sending you a copy of that. This document that I'm referring to right now in here is the pre-visit assessment. I reviewed every single club visit that was done in the last year. And I will tell you, I'm starting to see clubs where the assessment comes over, this club far exceeds expectations. And then you look at it and see things like, well, not all the officers are in pathways. The club only has maybe 2 officers, each of holding 3 roles. They're not doing any DCP points. They're not getting well. They have low enrollment. The 2 things don't match in my mind. And as looking at the visit forms that are used by International, they really speak to quality of club meetings and what's in the club meetings. They're not speaking to what's behind all of that. And so we've tried to put together this particular table as a start of how we're going to try to do something that you can look at before you get to the club. In addition, it familiarizes you with several of the documents or reports that we can use. So what we're trying to do is create a rating scale in which the lower the number of the club, that means that the less or the more it needs your help. And therefore, you should put those with low scores at the beginning of your visit list. A club that has apparently doing everything right by the types of rationale we have here, you need to visit them too, but you probably won't have to develop a rescue plan for the club, like you might have to with a club that has very low scoring. Now we'll walk through each of these with an example, but I do want to go through some of the sources. club officer report listed here on the source for number 1 is used throughout. There's a club membership report also. You will have access as either a division director or as an area director through District Central to these types of reports. However, they may not have them all available right away on July 1st because sometimes there's a delay. You still need to get those reports. How do you get them? Your first step as an area director is to get the reports from the division director. They may have them available before you do. The second step this year is, with the exception of, with all divisions, is if you can't get them from your current division director, get them from last year's division director. Because if your division director doesn't have access, that means they haven't moved the access rights yet from the prior year's division director. And all of those division directors from the prior year are willing to help you through this transition. If worse comes to worse, and you still can't get it, I have full access to all these reports. I have already provided reports by request to some of the division directors for their particular division. You should know that these reports change almost on a daily basis, and they're generated new every day. So you really want to, I wouldn't try to do things based on a 2-month-old report. Get the current one. So those are the 3 steps. Go to your, if you can't, first try to get them yourself through District Central, and it's in a section called Reports. Second, go to your new division director. Third, go to your old one. Fourth, go to myself, or actually Carol. Carol can do the same thing. Probably better to go to Carol because I'd probably end up sending a report request to her anyway. So those are the steps. So let's look at this. What do we want to know? Account excluding duplicates in member IDs. In other words, this is for the unique club officers. It has been a situation I have seen whereby the 7 club officers are really only held by 2 people. That's generally a problem. So we don't want to give credit for duplicate member IDs and club officers. We want to know how many unique people are performing the club officership role. The second item here, club officer report, unique club officers that have pathways enrollment. You might think that everyone is enrolled in pathways. That is definitely not true, and it's a danger signal because it tends to be the members that have been around a while that are the idols to the new people coming in. They're the mentors, they're the people they look up to. And we need to find out if that's a problem. If that's a problem, you have to deal with that club. Even more so than that, step number 3, we found a lot of situations where people's enrollment in pathways is only the enrollment. So now we need to take a look at, of the people that are pathways enrolled and are officers, how many of them have had at least 1 pathways level achieved? That's not unreasonable to achieve 1 pathways level in the 5 years we've been on pathways. Ultimately, DCP points are important. And I skipped one, attending officer training. Number 4 there, officer training report is a little more difficult because it is not maintained in an easy way to access from international. So I'll be providing the end of last year officer training report. You can get a sense of whether or not the officers that have been appointed are used to going to training. I can't tell you the number of clubs I go to where no officers went to officer training during the year. That's a problem. And if we get them started in July, we get these meetings for clubs like that started in July, we'll already have available officer training set up by Carol to encourage them to go to. Let's just walk through a couple more here. Distinguished Performance Report. DCP points are a good indicator, but the fact of them being distinguished or not doesn't tell the whole picture, because clubs may be giving outstanding education programs, but for some reason have a problem with membership, and that will disqualify them from DCP consideration if they haven't had that appropriate increase in membership. So that's why we really separated this out. Number of DCP points, membership range. Succession planning is an important point here, but it's not part of the rating scale. So this is just a cue as you're observing the club or contacting or interacting with the club. Now I will tell you, one of the danger signals I've seen is what I call officers in name only. I've gone to club visits this year. Well, I generally only go to club visits when there's a club that has had a problem and the district or the division director has asked me to go to that club visit. So I know the club is already in a bit of trouble. The number of clubs I've gone to in that mode where the president and the vice president do not attend meetings, and the VPE, I meant, do not attend meetings, is greater than I would have expected. That's a problem. And if we look in succession planning here, you need to assess what's really going on insofar as the officership participation. There's no real metric behind that, but that's what should be observed. So these are the things you should, in your own piece of paper, have in mind before you even call the club. And I'll show you an example of this. I just used my own club, Communicators Club, and filled out one of these documents. So I started with unique club officers. Notice, and this is for last year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 club officers. Well, there's 7 club offices, right? We only have 5 here. So the score for my club in this situation is 5. This is an example of a segment of the club officer report that I was referring to earlier. Very simple so far. Number 2, unique club officers that are pathways enrolled. On the same report, as you can see to the far right over here, it indicates which of us are pathways enrolled. Thankfully, with my club, it's all of us. It would be very embarrassing if there was a no after my name here. But I'm enrolled in pathways, yes. Score 5 of 7. Again, we only had 5 officers, so we only have the possibility of 5 being enrolled in pathways. Next, number of unique club officers with levels completed. And here we have how it looks for our club. 1 level. This comes from the membership report. Maximum level completed. 1, 5, 3, 0, and 3. So what the score should go is for everyone 0 above 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means we have 4 club officers that are not only pathways enrolled, but they've also achieved at least 1 level in pathways. That is a real indicator of their commitment to pathways. And quite frankly, without a commitment to pathways, the club, well, I'll say this unequivocally, those clubs that are not committed to pathways are not doing well because they really have nothing to offer guests. So far we've got 5, 5, 4. Unique club officers trained. This is a report that I have to provide for you. I have a report of every person that attended every training in the second training session last year. So as we can see from this list, Ellen attended open houses at work. Carrie attended club officer roles panel discussion. I attended round 2. Whoops. I attended this particular session on November 15th. Regina speaking to teach, Manikandan, hybrid evaluation, apologies to mistakes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 officers were trained. It's a really bad signal to have this list empty or at 0. Distinguished Club Program points. This is really easy. You go into the website, go to Leadership Central or District Central, and then you go to District Performance Reports. This is our club at the end of last year. That's for your first round of visits. This is your best indicator. Look at this report for June of this year, the latest version you have, and it'll tell you, here's what the membership of the club is. Goals met 5. 5 goals met. That's the lowest bar for distinguished. But despite that, this is our second row with 5 year in a row with 5-year club goals met. So we're pretty proud about that. 5 of 10. Membership comes from the membership report. It's a simple count. The way that this rating scale is set up is that the target membership is 20. That's consistent with the DCP report. There are a very small percentage of clubs with 20 or more members in the district, less than 20%. The biggest clubs, by the way, are virtual only clubs by far. Jane Croft is who's on here, her club is 44 members. It's an all virtual club. Zimmer Biomed is all virtual, has 42 members, if I remember right. But the way we've set this up, you don't really get extra credit in this rating by having a lot of members, because the maximum score you can get is 10 in this membership range. So we have 10. At the bottom of the document I showed you early is the pre-visit total score. And so as you walk through this, you got 5, 5, 4, 5, 5, 10, 30, 10, and a total of 34. Now that doesn't tell you anything really, except it might point out a few danger points. If you came to my club and asked, how many officers do you now have this year? We'd be able to tell you, we have improved that situation. We now have 7 distinct officers and all of our club roles are filled. Simple question, simple answer. But what my recommendation is, go through this exercise for every one of your clubs. Come up with a total. And once you've done that, you then have your priority, right? The lowest scoring club is your highest priority. That's the club that needs your help the most. And then work your way back up the list. I don't know with just my club here 34, this is division F61. I don't know if that's good, bad, or ugly compared to the other clubs yet. You need to provide this exercise for all your clubs first, and then essentially triage your clubs. Get to the ones that need your help first. Now, Carol and I will be in situations that seem a little strange based on the district reports. We will probably ask you for this pre-visit assessment of the club. Carol would say, I've got some questions about this club. Let me see the pre-visit assessment and send that across to me. That's what we'd like to see, because the final assessment or the overall assessment on the actual visit form is not always that great. So some questions about what we're trying to achieve. Anything on this pre-visit assessment? Anybody? And I can't see everyone's hands, so if there's any hands raised, let me know, Rikia. Sam, did you have something? Go ahead.
Yes. I think I know the answer, but are you using, you're just using well, okay, I'm saying 2022, 23 is last year now. I'm just saying, so you're using 2023 stats, not anything that's been done. So for example, we've had training already, for 2023, 24. So
Yeah,
those,
okay, so,
we ignore those and just look at the 2023's information.
well, it's, first of all, number of club officers should be using the current one, brand new. That's available. If a club has not updated that, that's a problem. So you want to be able to look at that to make sure this is for 2023 office, 2023, 2024, next year officers. The club officer report, the club membership report should also be the current one. That's issued new daily. The officer training report last year, because this year's hasn't finished yet. And when we get to the second round of everything, this specification will change. The distinguished performance report last year also. The membership range, use the current one. You got a current member list, that's the most current information. So that's the way that I would use them. If you have something that's current and complete, actually, that's probably a better way to state it. Use the most current and complete information you have. So you won't have complete information on DCP except for last year. You won't have complete information on officer training except for last year's. The rest is the most current and complete.
Rick, Catherine has a question.
Go, Catherine.
I actually didn't have a question. I was responding to his question to say what the goal of this was. My understanding is the major goal is to prioritize what clubs need the most attention early on in the process to allow you to make sure that they get high touch care early on.
That's absolutely correct. It's absolutely correct. Okay, going one bit further here. This is the third step. Form 1471. The publication, the earlier publication contains Form 1471. But this is the form version of what you have to key into the Toastmasters International site to record your club visit. Notice it is primarily associated with moments of truth, and the earlier publication I pointed you to will take you through a lot of this. My recommendation is to carefully examine this form first before you go to a club meeting, so that you know what you can discuss based on this form. You've already gone through the pre-visit form. You know what you need to discuss based on that, but this really demonstrates meeting quality. Now, there's a couple of cautions I have that I'm going to use segments of this form to go through, but this, I don't bring computers to clubs that I go to. I typically take the physical form and write it. Now, that's all up to you. Do it however you want to. I just couldn't key and keep track of what's going on in the meeting at the same time. So I fill it out and I bring it back and I enter it immediately. The deadline for the last set of form submission in the last round of last year, like every year, May 31st. I got the last forms filled out on May 31st at 10:59 p.m. What's more disconcerting was that the visits took place in March. Please don't do that, because if you have a club that's in trouble and you've done the visit in March and don't fill out the form until May, it doesn't get visibility. It's as if the visit didn't even exist. Nothing gets alerted to the district until this form gets filled out. So when you do the visit, try your best to get that form entered when you get back home that night, the next day. If you're doing a virtual visit, find some time soon to do it. There's no reason to hold it out for 2 months. Now, some say they couldn't get information from the club. Then you just fill out what you can. What, I can't get the information from the club for this thing that I might need. There are also some clubs that are not meeting. If you have a club that's not meeting, fill out the information anyway and just say, this club is not meeting. That fulfills the attempted meeting requirement. And it also calls the attention of the district that that club may be a club that is either suspended, ineligible, or needs some extraordinary action. I will be sending you a copy of this form, but we'll just walk down some philosophy things. Again, we are at the club to motivate. And how do we motivate people in Toastmasters? We evaluate them toward motivation. Make sure you praise the club on things that are important. You don't denigrate the club in any way. And where you have a mark that is not great, tell them how they should consider changing. Not just that you should get more members. It should be based on what I've seen here. I recommend the following steps. And those should go in your comments on this form. Now, as you know that this form is automatically sent to 4 people. One of those persons is a club president. And believe me, if you don't use an evaluation technique, if you're mean by accident, even by accident on the club, consider what that president is going to do and consider how you will probably be greeted at the next club meeting. So consider the audience. There is a private section on the website that you can use to communicate, let's call them personal concerns. For example, I was at a club meeting where one of the members was just abrasive and was offending others. I want to call that attention to the district, and maybe there's some steps the district might need to take place. So that private section is something that you should fill out. Start the visits and record the visits immediately. I already went through them. Let's look at another section. This is a very, very important section, which comes back up into into area director and division director succession. As a matter of fact, most of the area director appointments we made this year came as a result of information on this form from club visits. So what you put here might say, okay, this person sounds like they might be good for or might be interested in a future area director position. This other person might be good for a future district division director or even a district position. But just make sure as you fill out this part of the form or the online form that you indicate what is meant, because this is a very weird question. Are the members interested in serving as future club officers or district leaders? If you just put the name down, we have no idea as to whether they're simply interested in being a club officer or they're interested in being a district leader. So try to differentiate, even if in the position you just put in club officer or district leader, something like that. Carol will be accumulating this information for next year when we get toward the end for this coming year, we get to the end of the year and start to fill area director and division director positions. Before we get into this section, I just want to ask, and I can't see your hands, so you'll have to grab them for Ricky. If anyone has questions about that initial view of Form 1471. Okay.
Yeah, Rick,
Yep. Go ahead.
just for you, I'm sure you want us to not wait until Carol is district director for us to do our visits. On your PowerPoint, you've got 7/1/25 when we start with the visits.
Yes. Oh, 25. I will make sure to correct that before I send it out.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks, Sam.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I was reading a report at the same time. I appreciate you pointing that out. That would be a long time to wait. That's a lot of information you could accumulate, though.
It's even funnier because I sent this slideshow to Carol late yesterday, but it didn't have this section in it, so she couldn't view it in advance. So no, so that's 7/1/23. And I'll make sure to change that before I send out this slideshow. for you.
and I have another question. That section about those who are interested in serving as district or club leaders. Now, I've seen it done where it's just the club, the president or they get that information for you on that. Would you recommend you actually do it yourself?
Well, you can do that whatever way works best for you. I think that if you're getting it from the president, that's fine. But I also think it's valuable. Your observations during a club meeting might be something of value. You might see a hidden gem just because you're looking at things from a different perspective. So there's no reason you couldn't just add somebody else onto here if you wanted to.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Rick, LaDonna has her hand raised.
Go, LaDonna.
Thank you. I hope to not come off offensive or harsh or whatever, but my issue that I have with some clubs, it's more that I just don't understand. So if any of you guys have some tips, I have clubs with members who refuse to use pathways, and I've spoken to them in a loving way, and now I'm at the point it's like I want to shake you because pathways is why you're in Toastmasters. So if anybody has some good suggestions, can you reach out to me by my email or something? Just let me know what worked for you, because I'm sorry to say that some of those who refuse are leaders of clubs. They are in an officer role and speak, we're not fond of we'll speak that in a club meeting when I've been there for an area visit. So how do I handle that diplomatically, and what is the best encouragement tool other than hit them with a bat? I don't know. I mean, that's been my biggest problem. It's like I don't want to call something an apple if it's not an apple. So I mean, that's my problem with filling out that form. I'm like, but they're not, but they are. I mean, they have great meetings and they all get along and the meetings run smoothly, but they don't do pathways, and it's amazing. So if you guys have any tips for me, please, I would appreciate if you all share with me. That's all. Thank you.
Well, I do have some general guidance.
Okay.
There's a concept of social clubs. It sounds like what you're describing, a social club. I will tell you, those that are not social clubs that have not accepted pathways are uniformly low membership clubs. And so they end up solving their own problem if they're not open to change.
Well, I have particularly one club that tells me we go to work and we get done with work, and we have Toastmasters meetings and we're done with Toastmasters. We don't do anything outside of just having our Toastmasters meaning they don't support when you need roles for area speech contests and things like that. So and that's a large group that I mean they've had at least 20 in a meeting when I've been there for the visit, but I'm like, and they do so well and they speak so well, and I'm going, but I don't get it. So, and I know since it's volunteer and they're paying their own dues, you can't say either do this or get out. I don't want to say that, but I need some better tools. This is my second year with the same area, so I want to really make a big change and a big impression, but on a positive note, instead of the frustration I felt at the end of this term.
Hey, Rick, can I add something here?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, LaDonna, I really appreciate that you want them to get onto pathways. First of all, that's where it starts, and that shows your leadership. So thank you for that. In the VPE training this year, I am offering that you suggest that the club print out the pathways. You got to find out, why do they object to pathways? Okay, one is a time element. One might be that they aren't computer savvy and it's too hard to get to the pathways or to log in or whatever. Just about everybody has a smartphone. Ask them to go to toastmasters.org. You show them how easy it is to get to pathways. That's one solution. Another solution is print it out for them so that they have it, or ask the club to print pathways each level. And then they can laminate it so they can pass it around if they want to. They can print it individually for each member, or have the member print it out themselves if they don't like to keep going back. If somebody is not computer literate, the VPE can print it out for them. So that's some of the solutions. But the other thing is, one of the things that I'd like to accomplish this year is getting all clubs onto pathways. And I have names of a committee of people that are interested in helping. I think I have a leader selected, separated from the pack, if you will. And I needed to get another committee up and running before I start the Pathways Committee. But that committee is going to focus on those clubs with you. And that's all I got to say about that.
Well, I
Rick,
think-
Catherine has some input as well.
Okay, so Catherine, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, so when it comes to getting these clubs on pathways, it really does require a connection with the club leadership, because not every club's having the same disagreement or dislike of pathways. Yes, there's definitely some computer illiteracy issues, especially when we're talking about clubs that have members that have been doing this for 30, 40 years and don't really want to see the change. And so they don't want to use the computer and they don't want a new program. Not that they have a choice anymore. But there's also clubs that don't understand the value or the benefit of it, especially when maybe a few people have done level 1s or 2s, but haven't really gone into higher levels. So showing them the value, demonstrating it, go there and do one of the higher level projects with them. Have one of your really awesome members in Club A visit Club C and give their final presentation for that podcast that they did, or show them what an HPL project looks like and really show them how this can be personalized. Having those specific people really show that Pathways has this benefit is really helpful. And the other thing is reminding them that just like your VPE has to find individual goals for the members and help them achieve that, every club has their own flavor of Toastmasters and their own goal. If you've got a club that their whole thing is that they really want to be great salespeople, and they're like, well, I don't know why I'm talking about, you know, my research and presenting speech, having them see what's coming down the pipeline and giving them that taste and showing them how it's tailored to what that club is about or what those individuals are about is gonna make the difference. Yes, there are going to be people that just straight up don't want to do it. I literally got screamed at by a club president because I suggested that he was running a social club. But we eventually got to a point where we could have a conversation about what he was really upset about. And he didn't feel like Pathways was valuable. And I had to break through that and get him, I got him on board. He signed up, he's completed a path since then. Like, it just takes time to make those personal connections and show them that it's valuable. A lot of us had a hard time adjusting from kind of our CL and CC manuals because it didn't include things like meeting roles. Like, we no longer see the requirements like, hey, you have to be a Toastmaster, you have to be a table topics master that are specifically lined up. And so finding ways to engage you in a club with those early levels is going to be different, but every club's going to have their own reasoning as to why. And so it takes having area directors be there and communicating with them to get through that. it's hard. Trust me, it's rough, but we're going to get there together as a team, because it is not just one person that's going to make the difference at this point.
Thank you.
That was very well stated, Catherine.
Yes, it was.
All right, I'm gonna go on just for another minute here into there we go. They're telling you what I'm going to send you, so you know what's there and what some things that you need to look at. So these are the reports that are available. These are all hyperlinked. You'll get these in what I'll send you, the slideshow. But the dashboard that I referred to, the Distinguished Performance Report, there's a hyperlink to that. Area collector club visit reports, there's your hyperlink that'll get you to where you do report those. That will not be available until July 1st at the earliest. Division Director Club visit reports. Oh yeah, and there, that same thing is available for the division directors to take a look at. Whether you're an area director or a division director can look at those reports. What I'm going to send you are the following: PDF of the slideshow, publication 219, form 1471, pre-assessment instructions, second round training report. That's the one that shows what officers took what trainings in the last year's second round. And this is interesting, a realignment report. You probably have a list of all the clubs in your area already, but if there's any questions, if you look back at the membership reports, if you're looking at a membership report that was this year's membership report, it probably doesn't have the right information on it insofar as all of the realigned clubs. The question is, when exactly will the realignment be placed in the system by International? All I can tell you is the due date for those realignment reports isn't until the middle of July. So you will have an interim period where if you want to have a question, unless you've already been told what your clubs are, if you have a question, you might want to look at the realignment report. I'll make that available to you by email, probably go out tomorrow. Last chance for some Q&A on anything else. But the most important thing is, if you have a question, you come up with a problem, please use the escalation. Go to your new division director. That new division director will then decide whether to go to Carol directly or maybe get some advice from the previous division director. Carol will escalate to me if it's necessary. There might be some disciplinary actions that have to be taken, God forbid, and that will have to be escalated higher. But if you have a problem and you're not getting it solved fast enough, there's some things we can't do. I can't make International do things faster. I can't make it happen. But I can maybe find some ways for you to find some other way around the problem to get some information you may need. So keep in mind that the division directors are here to serve you. Carol, myself, Mark, all the people in the district and Diane, all the people in the district leadership are here to serve you. So it goes like this, and this is what I have in my mind all the time. I have to keep reminding myself. The club is on top of a wide pyramid that's inverted. The area directors work for the clubs. Division directors work for the area directors. The district leadership works for the division directors, area directors, and the clubs. So if you have questions about this presentation, think about it later sometime. Just reach out to myself, reach out to Carol, reach out to whoever you need to get the job done. And Ricky is reminding you, we're about to terminate this session. You can stop recording now, Ricky.